Francie Molloy, Sinn Fein MP. Thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanking you for the invitation.
What is your opinion and that of your party as well on the repeated reports of Turkey's use of chemical weapons against the Kurds?
Well, it is particularly alarming that these reports continue and that there hasn't been the proper investigations into them and to see exactly what the situation is. We know from reports in the past that a number of guerrilla fighters have been actually killed by chemical weapons, and we know as well that there's a big operation there of the Claw Lightning to take out military people and to engage war and to attack the civilian population by the use of chemical weapons, because the chemical weapons basically cannot be controlled when they're launched. And so we have that situation where on the ground that the civilian population are being endangered, and that is totally unacceptable. So we do need to get the international community to challenge that and to start investigating properly into what actually is happening and to be able to authenticate the reports that are coming in. But it is particularly alarming that those reports continue to come in at the present time.
What effective action can be taken to investigate and establish the facts about this?
Well, I think it is up to the international community to properly investigate the allegations around and the Turkish government should be held to account, because they need to be investigated for the war crimes. And this is what the use of chemical weapons is war crimes. And we need to have the proper investigation to ensure that the investigators go in at the time that things happen, so that they can collect the information, can collect the debris, can collect the ammunition which actually shows that chemical weapons have been used, and so that can actually then be used in future. There's no point in going in and investigating this sometime later. It needs to be done there and then, and the proper investigation by the international community of it. And it is disappointing that the organisation for the prohibition of chemical weapons have not taken as much action or as speedy an action as what they should be doing in this situation. They know what has to be done, and what we need to do is to make sure that we get a complete ban on the use of chemical weapons and to hold Turkey to account for the war crimes that it is committing.
Thank you. What practical influence and can politicians like yourself exert on the process in order to complete the authorized charge with verifying such abuses to get to work?
Well, first of all, I'm particularly pleased and delighted to have been asked to join the coalition against chemical weapons in Kurdistan. That is a very broad coalition of experts and activists who are deeply concerned about the situation in Turkey and against the Kurds. And we need to actually to put up the campaign there, to continue it, to make sure that we organise at the highest level of international delegation composed of medical experts going in to visit the region and to gather the necessary information and to that be authenticated. It is crucial to meet with and hear from the actual people on the ground, to hear their experiences, hear what actually has happened in those attacks, and to see the reports and to compile a proper investigative report that ultimately will actually go to the UN in Geneva, because that's the only way that where the experts can verify what actually has happened. And we see that happening in different countries where the evidence has to be correctly collated and the proper reports submitted, and make sure that actually war crimes can be contained and that we actually get the proper investigation. The gain of samples and in a supervised laboratory situation is very important, so that people can't whittle out of this whole thing by actually saying, well, it wasn't actually chemical weapons, it was such another thing. So it needs to be properly investigated, and the UN actually needs then to exercise its strength to make sure that Turkey is held to account for what actually is happening.
Thank you. What are the implications are there for arms sales to Turkey? Uh, Nothing that the British government has lifted its sales ban, while Sweden recently indicate that it may resume arms exports to Turkey following its restrictions imposed in 2019 after Turkey invaded northern Syria. So, how would you going to comment on that?
Well, I think it's totally wrong that the arms sales should be uh, started up again, and it is concerning that the British government actually is considering that whenever the allegations are being made against Turkey and the use of weapons against the civilian population there. And I think it actually, it brings it very clear that arms sales becomes the priority for most governments. And we need to make sure Sweden is actually in a similar situation. So naturally what we need is a ban on arms sales, because Turkey has proved that beyond all doubt that it is not capable of actually controlling the armed forces, and it is directing attacks against the civilian population, and we need to ensure that there is a ban on arms sales. Unfortunately, in every one of these wars around the world, the President, arms sales becomes the biggest issue, and that governments seem to be more interested in providing the openings for arms sales than to curtail the Turkish government in this situation, and to actually protect the innocent population. So we do need to have proper investigation, and we also need to curtail the arms sales at this particular time, because we know in the past, whenever the world looked away when Saddam Hussein launched genocide attacks against the Kurds, 180,000 people were massacred at that particular time. So we do need to actually, and the OCPCW actually must send a team into the region immediately to investigate and to bring that report to the UN, and to actually curtail the arms shipments to Turkey and arms sales to Turkey from all countries. And we shouldn't be led astray by Turkey's nice voices on it. In reality is that the civilian population are under attack, that there is the use of chemical weapons and alleged use of chemical weapons, and that needs to be properly investigated before anything else actually happens.
Seeking concessions from NATO allies in return for its assent to Sweden and Finland's membership, and is even seeking to be rewarded for its role in supplying drone technology to Ukraine. Surely no concessions should be made to Turkey until these chemical weapons allegations are cleared up. What is your view on that, very shortly, lastly?
Well, I totally agree that there should be no concessions made at all to Turkey on that particular thing, and using Ukraine at this particular time shouldn't be part of the any deals being done and any weapon sales in that situation, because what's happening in Ukraine is totally wrong, and the use of weaponry from Russia, and we don't know exactly what's all being used there. But the very fact that Turkey could actually be supplying weapons and trying to get a concession with NATO in relation that they're are also using its influence there in relation within NATO. We need NATO need to be actually protecting the civilian population in all instances, and we actually shouldn't be doing any deals with Turkey, allowing them in through the back door, and ignoring what Turkey is doing itself to the Kurdish people. So the campaign for the coalition against chemical weapons in Kurdistan will hopefully remind the international colleagues of the using of chemical weapons is a war crime, and such allegations need to be treated with the utmost seriousness and cannot be simply swept under the carpet, because this is a time for people to stand up in protection of the civilian population, in protection of the Kurds in this situation by the Turkish government, and so no other concessions should be given to Turkey in dealing with that situation. It needs to come clean and open its resources up to make sure that there can be a proper investigation into what actually is happening, particularly in relation to the use of chemical weapons against the Kurdish people.
Dear Francie Molloy, Sinn Fein MP, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments today.